showed up, and Janie gave me a week's worth of teaching me how to edit videotape and write scripts and number scripts and pull slides and edit film, because we were still using film then. And it was a one-man show. I came in first person in the morning, and I ripped all the wires, decided what was going to go into my show, watched the CBS morning news because I would take video chunks out of that, and I went through all my own film, and I did my own, I produced my show. It was 20 minutes, well, it was about 15 minutes of news, a little bit of weather, and then a 10-minute interview at the end, live interview every single day. Well, you couldn't ask for better experience than that, because I was doing everything. I was responsible. It was me. I mean, there was no one else to do that show. So I learned everything there was to learn. And then I started producing, because I was, they figured, oh, this person is good, so they had me start, reporting a little bit in the afternoons, and then producing the newscast at 5 o'clock for John Scott. John Scott couldn't, or I don't know whether he couldn't or wouldn't produce his own show. So I was to produce it, but John read it. Well, after a couple of months of doing that, John Scott decided he was going to run for public office. So he got pulled off the air in 5 minutes, right as soon as he announced that he was going to run for the state legislature. You obviously can't go on the news after you're running for elective office because there's a conflict of interest. So they jerked him off the air and said, well, there's no one else to do it. Patty's going to have to do it. So we went on a newscast with 3 women. There was me doing the news, a woman doing weather, and a woman doing something called Contact 13, which was a consumer ombudsman. Well, they would never, Paul Plunkett would never in a million years have put 3 women on the air on purpose. But he had no choice. I mean, it was just sort of a feeling. Well, the phones lighted up by people saying, I love it, this is great. So he kept me there. So I sort of expanded. Then I was doing the morning show, plus I was doing a 5 o'clock. And I think I was the first woman in the whole country to have a primetime solo women anchor slot. And it was, of course, purely by accident. But it was in that period where women were getting, the FCC and the women's movement, everybody was combining to say, you've got to put some women on the air. So, the timing was real lucky for me. Well, after 2 years of doing that, I figured I knew everything there was to know in television. So I decided, I'm ready for the big time, climbed the ladder. And so I looked for jobs up and down the West Coast, and I got myself a job in San Diego. And my husband quit his job and followed me over, and I did sort of the same types of things. I was producing and doing assignment editing and anchoring and so forth. And I was there about 24 hours when I discovered I did not know all there was to know. I knew all there was to know in Tucson, but I didn't know all there was to know in San Diego. And I was big fish in little pond. I was this hotshot kid, I got there, and I had this news director who is now anchoring at KCBS in Los Angeles. His name is Harold Green. Harold is exceedingly talented, but has a very short fuse. We had these big, called Olympia typewriters, because they write in big script so that you can see the type easier, and they're big, hefty, manual typewriters. Well, I would be writing for Harold, and then he proofread every copy if he didn't like it, he picked up this typewriter and threw it at you. Well, it didn't take real long to figure out what he liked and didn't like, That typewriter hurtling through space was very impressive. So, we regularly, truly had to send typewriters off to the typewriter repair shop because Harold threw them at people. I spent the first week, my husband was still here in Tucson and I was there, and I spent the first week in tears. I just thought, I have gotten in way over my head. But it was also an exceptionally good learning experience. And I got a chance to do everything over there too, and it was really fun. But my husband was unable to find a job he really liked. So after a couple of years there, he says, all right, Patty, it's my turn. Time for you to quit your job. And I want to come back to Tucson. So, I got myself all together and cried my few tears and came back to Tucson. And I thought, well, I'm just going to turn myself around. Instead of having a career goal, I'm going to have a good life goal. And by gum, I'm going to have a good life. Well, I came back and I really did think, okay, I'm not going to be climbing the ladder. Climbing the ladder is very hard in TV. I'm going to digress for just a minute. You really have two choices in the television business. You either decide you're going to have a good life and sit down, settle down in a town and just be there. Or you decide you're going to try to climb the ladder, and every 2 years you try to go to a bigger market, bigger market, bigger market. Well, along the way, if you've talked to anybody who's done that, they've all become divorced. They all see their children for 2 weeks in the summer, and their friends are scattered to the four winds, and they have no roots in the community at all. And I talked to these people who'd spent 15 years doing that, and they still hadn't made it to New York, you know? And I thought, it just was not for me. So we came back and decided we'd have this good life instead. Well, it turns out Tucson was growing so much, and TV was growing so fast, that it turned out I was able to have my career goal and my good life goal at the same time. And it has worked beautifully. And I'm really, really pleased. And Tucson television has changed and improved so much in, what have I been back, 11 years now. I guess I've been back 11 years. And it's really, really a good TV market. I'm really proud to say. I go to cities all over the country when I'm on vacation, and I look and I'm seeing, you know, we do a darn good job. So I'm really pleased. I'd be happy to show you this tape that I have. Although you've been in the newsroom, it might be fun to look and see. This is basically just how the newsroom works and the studio works. And so you've seen a lot of it, but we can sort of look at it and talk about it. The most fun for me when I come to classes like yours is to answer questions about anything that's of interest to you, because I can talk for an hour and a half, but I'd really rather talk about things that are of interest to you. And you never have to worry about hurting my feelings of interrupting me and saying, you know, ask me a question or making a comment, because it doesn't hurt my feelings, it makes me feel good. Let's stick this in. This was a video that John Hook, one of our reporters, put together. And I've really only fast forwarded through it once. Roughly 4 minutes of weather and 4 minutes of sports. Sometimes we pull that down a little bit. Mm-hmm.
If you go over, like, if you're in the news at 10:30 exactly, and John Carson comes on at 10:32 or so.
We can't do it. God says you cannot do it. Theoretically, we should be able to, because, see, we used to have to hit the Johnny Carson Show live. KPNX in Phoenix fed us down their feed, and it hit right at 10:30, and so then you would join it in progress, and you do not join Johnny Carson in progress. I mean, that's one of the rules of life, because Johnny Carson's a real popular show, so you don't join it in progress. That's called JIP. So when people say we're going to JIP this program, it's join in progress. So we have to, I mean, you have to get